Here we go.
Okay. We're going to finish off a couple verses at the end of 24 and then probably get into Matthew 25
Sounds great.
now. So let me get... Okay. The last episode we have not covered. The next one we're covering, my Lord, is verse 42. Can you tell we don't edit this? Verse 42, which is, therefore keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come.
Yeah.
43, but understand this, if the owner of the house had not known what time of the night the thief was coming, he would have kept watch and would not have let his house be broken into.
Yeah.
So you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you don't expect him.
Yeah.
This was like, the language of this was confusing to me.
Yeah, it's really important because he was talking to those four, and that's what we always have to remember. And he's saying, hey, we don't know when he's coming, but if you know he's coming, stay up and watch. Because if you kind of can get that he's coming that night, you'll be ready for him, and he won't, that's the thinking, be ready. And so people have taken that and for 2,000 years have spent their life looking for him in that way. It was to those four guys. That's who, they were his apostles. And he's telling them, so I'm telling you this. They asked him, he's telling them. We read it today, it doesn't have the same application. I mean, that would be a really bad trick on God's part to say, hey, be ready, watch, get ready, and then have us watch like that for 2,000 years.
Yeah. If the owner... so it wasn't even to like other people at that time.
Not really. It was to those four.
Why are they the ones to keep watch?
Because they are going to tell the people who are believers in the faith, okay, we're getting close. And that's what we see. Paul, as we get closer, he says, hey, these things are starting to happen. By the time we get to Peter, Peter's like, the end of all things is at hand. John is like, it's at hand. It's here now. So they knew because they had been told what signs to look for.
But understand this, if the owner of the house had known what time of the night the thief was coming, he would have kept watch and would not have let his house broken into. So these disciples are, because they know the time of the night.
The signs of the times. Because they see these signs he's given them fulfilled. They'll know the time of the night. They'll know when he's coming.
But I guess where I get confused is it says, so you also must be ready because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him.
Yeah, I know. So it's do your best to watch like you would if you were a householder. But because he's coming when you least expect it. So you have to be diligent in your watch. Yeah.
But they know that
the time's getting closer.
Because you do not know what time. They know the signs, but they don't know the time.
Yeah. They know the signs, but they don't know the time. They know the signs, but they don't know the time. They know the signs, but they don't know the time. See, everybody should know that about eschatology. They knew the signs, but not the time.
That's good.
Thank you, sister. Good rap.
Word.
All
right. I'm very embarrassed that just happened.
I'm very grateful.
Who then, verse 45, who then is the faithful and wise servant whom the master has put in charge of the servants in this household?
Okay. He's now talking to them again. Who's the wise one? So listen, disciples, who's the wise one that the master has put in charge here? Keep going.
Who is the wise one?
The one who does, he'll tell you.
Okay. So, the end of that is to give them their food at the proper time. Who is the faithful and wise servant who the master put in charge to give them their food at the proper time? The servants. It will be good for that servant whose master finds him doing so when he returns.
Yeah. Feeding the people. Feeding and having them ready, getting ready, the bride. It'll be good for the servant if they're doing that when I return.
Okay. Why is it good for them?
Because it's by their teaching them and sharing the word and feeding them the word that the bride gets strong and faithful and more knowledgeable. So it's good that you're feeding my flock, is what he's saying.
Okay. But it's good for the servant whose master finds him doing so.
So I will be pleased with you as my servant if you're doing this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Truly, I tell you, he will put him in charge of all his possessions.
Yeah. So before the mother of John came to, hey, will you make my son this and this? Will you put them in the? And he's like, you do what you're supposed to do, and truly, I will lift you up.
Okay. But suppose that servant is wicked and says to him, my master is staying away a long time.
Okay.
And he then begins to beat his fellow servants and to eat and drink with drunkards.
Yeah. So he's saying, if you go get, and you start saying, he's not coming.
Yeah.
Let's just eat, drink, and be merry. He's not coming. So people read that today and they'll say, someone like me is this way. Because I'm not saying, look at
ready
the sun.
yourself.
Yeah, ready yourself. But he says to them, if you get the attitude that I'm not coming for a long time and you start living that way, you're in bad shape. Mm-hmm. So it tacitly proves he's telling them, I'm going to come in a short amount of time.
Yeah. And it also, I was going to say, it tacitly reveals that it will be long enough, though, for them to want to have that inclination.
Yes,
it's not like in 40 years is kind of that.
Yeah.
It's not, it's, yeah.
But
I do see that as like a pretty valid criticism that like we're not readying people for the coming.
If you believe in futurism, I see complete criticism of our view. Yeah. That's why the churches think you're failing if you preach this, because then you stop feeding. But you'll notice we continue to feed.
Yeah.
Because it helps the individual live in the Christian life.
You're just not I guess. You're not feeding the bride, the laws for the bride at that time, though, which were really specific, right?
Right.
Okay. The master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour when he's not aware. He will cut him to pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Can't say that phrase. I'm gonna dream of that face you're making. So does that, he will cut him to pieces. So if these disciples are not readying the people, they will go to hell?
They will go to outer darkness, it sounds like. Which is outside of the kingdom. Remember, the kingdom is light where God dwells. He's the sun, it says, of it. So outside of it is a place where those who go and they're weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. Whether this is speaking of Sheol or hell, the prison part, or whatever, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Outer darkness? That's what, is that his actual name?
Yeah, he'll call realms outer darkness.
Oh,
Mormons,
like Mormons?
borrowed that.
I wondered where that came from.
Put me there.
We going
to
outer darkness. Okay, well then let's move on to 25. That was the end of 24. He continues with some parables. Parable of the 10 virgins. So just a quick review of it. At that time, he says, at that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins. 5 are foolish, 5 are wise. They go out. This is a little bit of a confusing one for me, actually. They go out and wait for the bridegroom. The 5 foolish ones took their lamps without oil. The 5 wise ones brought oil with them. And they fall asleep while waiting. The ones without oil ask the wise ones if they can use some. They say, go and buy some. When they're out, the bridegroom comes. Then they go to a wedding, and the door is shut. And when they come back, the others, they say, open the door for us. And he says, I don't know you, therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour. So, as I was reading it, I'm thinking it's meaning one thing, and then it switches in the middle of it, and I think it means another thing, and then it switches again, and I think it means another thing. So I don't, especially him saying keep watch, you don't know the day or the hour. When they were keeping watch, for him to arrive, and
Right.
he arrived. So I don't know what
They
means
weren't
what.
prepared. They were keeping watch, but they didn't prepare themselves. Oil in Scripture, the stuff that burns in the lamp, is symbolic of the Spirit. It's symbolic of having insight and being wise and knowledgeable. So 5 of them had their lamps full. That means they spent their time preparing their minds and hearts with study and learning and the Spirit and following. 5 were foolish, and they lived like it doesn't matter. And when the time came for, it looks like the bridegroom's coming, and they're waiting for him, they had nothing in their lamps. They hadn't done anything. So when they had to go get oil because it's dark and they can't shine their light, they have to go get the oil. It's too late. That's his point. So you don't know the day or the hour that he's coming back. Don't put off being ready. Don't put off preparing yourself, you know. And so this is used by churches today to tell people, you know, you never know when he's going to come. You don't want to be like one of the virgins who didn't have oil, who has to go get it. Like, what if all the earthquakes in Israel starts right now and you need to get, and you're not ready. So that's what they use. Now come to church and get ready. Yeah. But it was for them. Yeah.
Okay. So what is the... Okay. The wedding then is this
It's him
thing
coming to
that
take his bride.
happens. Okay.
Yeah.
And they're like trying to come into the wedding.
Yeah.
And he's saying,
And they
I don't
could
know
if they
you.
were right, but
Okay.
half of them left.
Okay.
Yeah, they weren't. He
I
came
see.
and took them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just trying to get all the ducks in a row on
Yeah.
that parable. Okay. Parable of the bags of gold now then. A man goes on a journey and gives away his wealth to servants. One gets 5 of, what are they, talents? Oh, bags of gold. One gets 5 of them, one gets 2, one gets 1, according to their abilities. 5 went, put his to work, got 5 more. 2 gained 2 more with his, and 1 dug a hole and hid the money. To the 5 person that had 5 and got 5, he said, well done, good and faithful servant. I'll put you in charge of many things. I don't need to be reciting this necessarily, but at the end, he says, whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them.
Yeah.
So I kind of wondered if this suggests something with faith, like having faith will bring you the reward in heaven, but if you don't, you'll be in more pain than you were before. Or like, why is it's punished almost to just be static?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. The guy who got the 1 bag was fearful. He thought, I at least have to give him this back. This is what he gave me. And out of fear, he didn't multiply. He didn't put it to work. He was too afraid. So his whole point is, you, my disciples, take this, don't just become fearful, multiply, because I want a return. I want you to multiply what I've given you. Yeah.
And it's worth saying, it starts with, again, it will be like a man going on a journey. So he's, again, referring to what the kingdom of heaven, and it's to just the disciples.
Yeah.
So, like, I feel like this parable is used a lot in our life.
It is. Yeah.
And it's valuable,
Sure.
but, like...
But relative to his coming, it
yeah.
doesn't have any application.
Okay, and we're, like... Is it something where we're still like punished for not being actionable or something?
I don't know if it's punished as much as it's a loss of a reward. So you're not going to feel pain for it, but you won't be rewarded. How could you be rewarded for not producing the fruit that somebody else chose to produce through suffering? You know, so it's more just like you just don't get the reward. Yeah, does that make sense?
But those people that choose to keep their 1 bag, like, are given that, and they're allowed to just do that.
Yeah, you're allowed, because the payment for sin and everything is over. But the rewards still wait for those who walk by faith. But this is still speaking to 4 apostles about the end. So that's the context of it, and that's how you have to primarily see what he's saying. That's why he starts the parable off like, also, this is similar to what I'm saying in context of eschatology.
I think I'm realizing, maybe we've talked about this before, but it's become confusing again to me that, so here, like, it's to those disciples right there, and someone with the one bag that hides it, he's said he's wicked, lazy, give it to the one with 10. So he literally loses what he was given. Yeah. So the people then, like, they are taken up, the bride is taken up. Yeah. And people beyond that are good. They're fine. Yeah. They're in our state. Yeah. So, like, where is there some sort of punishment? Like,
it was on them.
On the disciples.
Yeah. It was because he is going to reward them greatly. And they are being called especially, and he has personally trained them. And so they are a special group, Okay. And they are going to man the New Jerusalem above with the bride. That's where their place is going to be. Just like the Jews of old, it was their job to be the priests in the temple that all nations could come to. Do you get it? All nations could have come to the temple. But the Jews were like, no, it's just for us. It's just for us. So the same picture's there in the New Jerusalem. He took his bride primarily from the Jews who followed him and received him as the Messiah. They are functioning somehow in places of not authority, but leadership in that. Oh. And all of us come in as children into that kingdom. Yeah.
Huh. Okay. So there isn't... Okay. All right.
Does that make any sense?
It does make sense. I'm not confused. I think I'm like forgetting things we've talked about maybe that I need to piece back together. I've been thinking I want to like go back and now rewatch all these at the same time and like hear it all, because it's kind of hard sometimes when we will go a week or whatever without talking about it. But yeah, like though it's a weird thing that like the bride's taken up. Oh, because I was gonna say the bride's taken up and there are people left, and then, but technically they're in our state then. So when they die, they're going to be fine anyway. Yeah. So it like doesn't really matter that they were left.
Yeah.
But they all died, right? Or they all were like, not died, but like destroyed in like big war with the Romans or whatever, right?
Okay, I'm gonna complicate your life a little bit.
Okay.
At the 70 AD destruction, there was all of that.
Okay.
But there was another second Jewish war in 137 AD.
Oh, wow.
And that was the like gnarliest wipeout of everything Jewish. So it's like the 70 AD was the bride taking, the way I see it, and the wrapping up. But the trickling down thing happened in another time. So even when 70 AD happened, it's quite possible that there were believers in Rome who were left there to carry the light forward somehow. It's just whoever he took were his bride. Does that make sense? So there could still be believers on earth after that. Okay? So it's not like this cut and dry at 70 AD, now everybody is this. However, what he took was the bride that would be everything this is to, and afterward there is no more punishment. All the victory's been had, it's done, unless it was the Jews, because they're still trickling out this punishment. And in 138 or 137, the Romans came in and they literally routed Israel, all of Israel.
Okay.
And just to add one more thing to make it interesting, the reason they did that is because Rome believed in supporting all religions. And they were sending 2 oxen and maybe 2 sheep a day to the temple, that when it stood for sacrifice as an honor to the Jewish nation. Yeah. And they probably would send something to the Baha'i faith too, or whatever. But they were that way. Well, after 70 AD, a Jewish guy came back in, Bar Kokhba, and he tried to resurrect the Jewish nation there, and him or his son said, "We don't want your bulls anymore." Yeah. Well, they have always had this relationship of this.
Wow.
And when they heard that amidst with their rebellion against Rome, Rome said, "Okay, that's it." So they had two times, the first Jewish war and the second Jewish war, where they thought we're going to take on the Roman army.
Wow.
And the thing was, they did win once in a war in between all that. The Jews did win against the Romans that were sent. So then when the Romans said, "Now we don't even want your sacrifice," the Romans said, "Okay, now." And they burned everything and utterly routed everything, finally overdone, dead. Yeah. Okay. So we never talk about that because it makes the story more difficult.
Yeah, it does. But it's also the same.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting, though.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
I mean, we're at 20 minutes and this is in weeds that I can look up in your books and stuff, but what area specifically did they route? And like,
All of Israel on the second one.
okay.
The first one, Jerusalem and the surrounding area of Judea.
Okay.
But Israel's bigger than that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll stop this episode.
All right.
Continuing on to the next.
Thank you.
See you later.